Hey everybody, welcome back to Shoe and Show. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode as we kind of wrap up 2025. We wanted to share some highlights. The whole team, nearly the whole team of FDRA is on today. And so we, number one, just want to thank you for listening this year, whether you listen to one episode or all the episodes that we had, superstars. We appreciate you listening. We did some really interesting things this year, trying to change things up, both on the podcast, but also in the work that we were doing for the industry. Basically, because this year was a really weird, chaotic, choppy year, as we all know, and it required kind of some innovation and some refocus and rethought about how we kind of serve the industry best. So this episode will kind of cover some of that, kind of the highlights we thought this year in particular that were really meaningful, both in terms of our work, but also in helping the industry. And hopefully, as you listen to this, maybe there's some things you didn't know that you can take advantage of as well. So, Matt, we're going to start with our CEO and president, Matt Priest. First name, Richard.
That it is, Charles. My first name is Richard.
Exactly. So, as we kind of kickstart this and go round robin, one thing or a couple of things you thought about this year that kind of were innovative or I guess fun. Let's have some positive conversation.
Yeah.
We had plenty of challenging negatives this year.
Yeah, no, it was an interesting year to say the least. But on the fun side, Andy, I think it was we were super relevant, right? We were just always connected, always engaging. As I look at the faces in this room, I think of everyone who's just really strengthen their connections personally with the industry, and that helps us serve the industry better. Quick things that come to mind are the shoe leadership series that we put out on Shoe and Show. That was something new. We had to shake things up in our 10th year of the podcast, and we had some really cool voices that came on. We heard some really interesting shoe stories. I think about our events, the Exec Summit in DC, the supply chain sourcing event in New York City. We had some just amazing content. Again, the speakers were phenomenal. Then I think it's something like Shoes for a Cure, where there's just all these smiles and high fives and just this camaraderie the industry is so known for, as displayed for good cause under Sandy's leadership. So for me, it was just, let's set aside the negativity. These were some of the really fun highlights for me in 2025.
Yeah. And Sandy, I'll bring you in on this one too, because I think part of this year was like building stronger relationships in a tough year, but also leveraging those relationships too to like do good. And so, kind of your perspective, especially with Fanny this year, because I think the markets were really interesting because the conversations were very different. It wasn't just about buying and selling the shoes. It was like, how are we going to price these? But then equally, like getting together teams from all these different retailers and brands together for Shoes for a Cure this year, both in New York City and your work in Miami.
Yeah, it was quite a year. Shoes for a Cure was just phenomenal in terms of engagement. We had over 400 people come together to work the shoe sale down at Chelsea Market to raise money for breast cancer research. And while we did a lot of great things, I think it was exactly what you shared about being together, camaraderie, joining forces with brands and retailers that you normally, might not get to see, for the day. And so many companies and corporations are looking to be more meaningful in the charitable space and giving back and doing some things that bring their people together. So I thought that was a great opportunity for over 45 companies that partnered with us, both in New York and then down in Miami. And we raised close to $1 million for breast cancer research. So we really moved the needle on that one. And I would say, again, Fanny was awesome in December and in June, both really robust. We're hearing that people want to be in New York in February. Every day I've been hearing that, that people are just liking to be back in person at these trade market weeks and at these events. So I know 210 had great events this year and Footwear News, and a lot of those events were sold out. People are definitely looking to be back in person and together. So I love that. That's been a highlight for me too.
Awesome. Gary, our economist, had a very challenging year, not just in having to give some bad news here and there, but the fact that he couldn't get data off some of the websites. So, obviously when the government shutdown happened and everybody was like, oh, it'll last a week, and then it became 6 weeks, and then people were reporting out data, which we do use to kind of see where we're at as an industry. But I think solving around that was the platforms that Gary and team have built over several years around inventory and pricing and things like that, Gary.
Yes, in fact, the 8-week government shutdown had caused us to have to look at secondary sources for data, which was good. As Nietzsche said, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger." Well, certainly it made us stronger to have these secondary sources to go to. So now we can look at maybe primary government data and secondary sources, and if they both point in the same direction, up, down, or sideways, that's great. That we have different views, different perspectives that give us that kind of ability to triangulate on what's going on in the industry. So certainly, while it was painful there for during the shutdown without that primary source data, had these secondary source data to go to now to triangulate what's going on in the industry is great, and I think has made us stronger at the end of the day.
Tell me, from your perspective, we can talk about this, but I think too, people may not realize all the data that we provide, but just trying to think about it, we do shoe prices at retail, correct?
Mm-hmm.
We do shoe sale numbers in terms of total consumer consumption. I think that's important, not just sales numbers, but total consumption.
Right.
We now have inventory levels where maybe you want to explain really quickly how you get the inventory levels.
Sure. The inventory levels are aggregated from quarterly earning statements from publicly traded footwear companies. We are able to take those quarterly numbers, add them all together, and anonymously share them with the industry to show what's going on for the whole industry. So much like our weekly shoe store sales numbers or weekly e-commerce reports, this is a way for everyone to see how everyone is doing without really seeing how anyone is doing in particular. So it's a great way to kind of really have your finger on the pulse of the market, whether it's on the sales side or the inventory side or other measures that we're working on, without really being able to discern how anyone in particular is doing. So it's a great way to see kind of how the industry anonymously is doing without being able to pick out anyone.
I will say, Gary, I literally was doing a membership services call this morning with a new member, and I was showing all the data, depending on your preferences. And he used to be in investment banking, the guy who's in Vietnam, and he says, "You're like the Bloomberg for footwear." I was like, you know what? That is a great compliment. So kudos to you, Gary, for all the data that you pulled together.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And as I say, the world is full of data. A phone book is full of data, but data is only so good as how you are able to analyze and synthesize the data to get the insights. And the insights are where the gold is buried. Data is like dirt in the ground, but you have to dig through a lot of dirt to find the diamonds.
If I only knew what a phone book was, that analogy would work quite well.
You know what a phone book is.
Phone book is.
Going old school here. But yeah, we've become, I think, really adept at being able to discern and filter out a lot of that dirt, or a lot of that coal, if you will, diamonds, to uncover the diamonds without worrying about the rest of the coal.
Well, I think to that point too, because of the consumer data and the murkiness of data in the economy, our sales surveys are growing. We've got more retailers more interested in getting involved to get the data sets. And it behooves, if you're out there and you're an FDRA member and you're more interested in becoming involved in our surveys, the data drops we have are very exclusive to the folks who are participating in the weekly shoe store. So like brick and mortar, and then also we have an e-commerce. So if you're interested in getting better data from the industry that isn't manipulated, I think there's some data sources out there that will quantify things differently. You got to be a little careful of those. But if you want direct data that gives you directional information about your marketing and merchandising, then drop us a line for that. So thanks for that, Gary. Thomas Crockett, your view from DC. Let's keep this positive, Thomas.
He has nothing to say.
So. You said, yeah. Let's. All right, Christy, you're up.
Okay.
No. I'll say we're talking fun. Yeah, we're talking fun and positive. I will say, despite the challenging environment, we had all these calls where we had like 700 people on emergency calls. It was very much an emergency situation every single week this year. However, we were trying to come up with fun and exciting things at our events, which we always do in this very difficult environment. And I just point to two. One was Sneaker Day. That was so much fun. We do that every year, but in this environment, okay, how do you do that and keep it fun and exciting? And we had the perfect person for that, Wilson Smith III, Nike designer, very dynamic speech. We had the biggest crowd we ever had. Sean Williams brought in his sneaker collection that spanned decades, and so staffers from the work for congressional offices could go and kind of walk through the history of sneakers. And we had a record crowd there. So, and it was a way to kind of do some soft advocacy, say, when you're thinking about these policies, think about the industry and the jobs involved. Andy put together a great video for that at the beginning that, highlighted all the jobs in our industry. So that was a really positive moment. And then one other one, I'll say that the Portland trade event, we came up with a lot of new ways to be engaging and fun. And we're talking these very difficult and often boring trade topics, but to kind of do it in a fun way. Like one thing we did this year was who wants to be a shoe millionaire? And, we had people like Quinn O'Rourke and with Danner, Mark Rave, another well-known guy in the industry, and they made it to the final round and lost on the last question. Mark actually won, right? Like, didn't he made it all the way. Quinn lost on the last question, but that was a lot of fun. Got the audience involved, and we'll look to do stuff like that next year as well.
We also had the trivia that Andy hosted, which I thought was fun. And who knew? People were so competitive in a good way. Like one of the questions was about a pop star who had a collab or something. And apparently there was like a ton of pop star. What about Justin Timberlake? What about this guy? And so that was a lot of fun. We added trivia to Brews and Shoes.
That was fun. And and the executive summit too in Washington, right? And that was the other kind of touch point. We had a few members of Congress come through and chat and engage. But really kind of talking about high level topics and issues that are impacting our industry, and just getting people together for a day in DC. And we're doing that again, by the way, in April 26th. It's the 250th anniversary of America, per the Declaration of Independence. Not the first. Actually, we're the second. We're in the second constitutional era. It's not the first. The first was quite different. So, just FYI, no one knows what I'm talking about except Matt as he shakes his head. Poli-sci for life. But we're doing it again, and then it's at the American History Museum. Appropriately, we have some really fun things planned for that, and then the second day we have briefings on critical business issues at the historic Union Station building. So that will be fun as well. Another fun thing in 2026, Christy is back. Christy, how are you doing?
All right.
I'm back. I'm so happy after, I believe it was 10 years to return to FDRA and the team. So that was definitely a highlight for me.
We call it exile, Christy. You were in exile for 10 years. You've come back home.
Now I'm back. Thank you for welcoming me back home.
What would be fun? What's fun? I mean, I want to hear what you thought of this year, but it's fun to hear a 10-year perspective difference between where you were and where we were as FDRA and what we were doing, and then now what you're seeing today.
Truly, we've grown so much. I mean, 10 years ago, it was just Matt, Andy, Thomas, and I. And now the team's grown to 12, and you all have done such an amazing job and impacted the industry so much. It's so cool to see the growth and be a part of it now. So very, very, it's just so cool. It's a cool perspective to see. Couple of my favorite things too, echoing Andy and Thomas, like the exec summit. It was great to see that and be so different than 10 years ago. And now it's so extravagant. I mean, and wonderful. I love it. And to see how many people attend. And then also Sneaker Day, meeting Wilson Smith III. I mean, he is truly a force, and hearing his story and seeing how he impacts people from all walks of life, truly incredible. And then also just seeing so many people gather for Sneaker Day. That was one of my favorite parts. And then I would be remiss not to talk about the Footwear Leadership Series. That was such an impactful moment of this year. Hearing Todd Krinsky talk about how he started in the mailroom, Tara McRae from Puma talk about gathering around a round table, as opposed to a square table. Loved that. Chris Wright, to bring it back to the white pages, talk about how he found his first internship in the white pages. So I feel like I've learned so much from not only you all, but people through Shoe and Show, leaders, and everyone in the footwear industry space.
Yeah. There's a lot of positives in a tough year. And I think tough years should bring the positives even higher up towards the end of the year, to be grateful for what we have in the industry and as a team of FDRA and the relationships that we all have and we've forged. And I think some highlights for me as we kind of wrap this up was just we did some leadership dinners in different cities, in Portland and Boston, in New York, and it was just nice to sit around a table and have a couple of hours to talk to executives about life. And it was in some ways an extension of the podcast. It fed information to the podcast on questions we might ask and look forward, but also it was an extension of these casual conversations that we have about the industry and life and everything else, and those were great. And a lot of the programming we had just brought people together in a tough year where I think we helped some companies find some solutions and do things a little bit better. And I think that's the nice thing that from my perspective, our job is we can help people do their jobs better, faster, easier. And that's a real purpose-driven mission that we have as an association, is to do that. And I think we accomplished that. So there's a lot of positives in a very tough year. 26, there's a lot of uncertainty too. And we hear that from the industry. But we're here. And I think next year will be even more work around building relationships, building good content, building solutions for the industry. But that all requires all of you to stay engaged with us and to have a constant communication flow on what's happening and then how we can support you. And we're here. Just look us up in the yellow pages, I guess, or in this thing called Google or the thing called FDRA.org. And you can find us there and just drop us a line. But yeah, on behalf of the team today, I'm going to wrap it up now. And I just want to thank the team for all their hard work this year. A lot of people put a lot of time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears into the effort. And I do mean blood because there was a few times we had some bloody hands from name badges. But all in all, it was a great year. And we appreciate you tuning in to this episode and the other episodes that we have. Every Monday, new episode drops for Shoe and Show as we enter, I guess it's the 11th year in 26. Yeah. But on behalf of the whole team here, we appreciate you listening. Until next time, Shoein is out.
Shoein has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit FDRA.org.